Gordon Smith, you lovely human being. Good evening from Denmark, from Copenhagen. You're the first one on. Gordon, welcome to you for this special show on Friday. We're at Portage Yacht Club again. John Van Buren, welcome to you, sir. You're in Holland, it says, not in SoCal. Greg Phillips is on the Gold Coast of Australia. Talk about a worldwide audience, Commodore. Commodore Craig Kivi, of course, with me here in studio. Delighted to have him at the Portage Yacht Club for today's show, number 632. And we'll get this one off the dock in about 10 seconds. Welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to show number 632 for this Friday, the 7th of July, 7/7. That's down under in Australia and New Zealand, where it is July 8th. Welcome to you all as well. We have Craig Kivi sitting right next to me, Commodore Craig Kivi, a former Commodore here at Portage Yacht Club, an esteemed entrepreneur, conservationist, and we're going to be talking about conservation mostly today because of a cool project he has undertaken that, in fact, I'll give it away now at the end of the show. I'm going to name the residents, the users of Portage Lake, our lake here, 650-acre lake, about 20 minutes northwest of Ann Arbor. We're going to name us, the users and residents here, winners of the day, thanks to Craig and his efforts. Delighted to have you all with us. Gosh, we've got people from all over the world. Carlos Aviz checking in from Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. Joe Holtzman live from Colorado. Rick Manero in Ridgewood, New Jersey. Joe's, of course, at his adopted home in Estes Park, Colorado. David James across the bridge, normally across from, we're not in San Francisco, but when we are, he's across the bridge from us in Sausalito. Hi, David. Gordon Smith. I'm going with the John Emmett look. I wondered how long it would take before somebody would criticize me for not having. I'm on vacation, for God's sake. I ought to be able not to have to shave. James Frederick Bland, back from the gym, it sounds like, 110 kilogram deadlifts. He is a laser, a Finn, an OK dinghy sailor. He says those deadlifts are on the menu this week on a cool down to the high 90s in Austin, Texas. Boomer Bland. Chris Exley. Hello, Chris. Derek Klein up in Seattle, Washington. We were talking about you the other day, Derek. Nice to see you. Andrew Pindar over in the UK, presumably back home. Good to see the clean-shaven Commodore. Meantime, yeah, the Commodore is clean-shaven. But not I. I'm on vacation. Alan Long in northeastern Ohio just added a V15 to the collection, a Vanguard 15, I assume that means. I was invited over by the Commodore of the University of Michigan Sailing Club. He said, why don't you come over and see, apparently they're replacing the Vanguard 15s with new Melgus 15s. So Jeff Clusian, if you're watching, thank you for that invite. I will try to get over there. We're staying over at our good friend Marjorie's place over in Bass Lake now. And maybe we can do that. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I've got a big monitor. You'll see me looking up here and sometimes down here at the camera. And hopefully we've stabilized it since our test last night. Thank you for joining us for that test. Let's get this one on the road. I want to off the starting line, I should say, and on the road, I want to thank Clark Chapin, who's, by the way, we have a live studio audience here. Clark is with us back behind me. I'm going to spin my camera on, you can see our live studio. In fact, we have wild applause from the audience. Wild applause at the Commodore Craig Kivi. Yeah, we got Alfredo Partiba and Commodore Chapin, and these are your grandkids, right?
Right.
Nice. Tell us about your grandkids.
So Christian is 12 years old. Carl's 9 years old.
Christian, can you wait? There he is.
Yeah, they're fish. We just got out of the water with snorks and mast and snorkels down off the preserve, looking at fish and stuff. So they're lake rats, like all the rest of us.
Well, Christian and Coral. That's a nice nautical name. That's a very sea-like, isn't it?
Yeah.
Coral.
Yeah.
Interesting. Clark Chapin is here. He's live and back in the back end. We're in the bar. We're in the grill room here at the Beach Street Yacht Club. At the Portage Yacht Club, not at the Beach Street Yacht Club. I am crewtonic today. But Clark, thank you very much for coming on as you did on our show last Friday. We took Tuesday off because of the holiday here in the States. Thanks, Clark. Had several nice comments from Fozy about Clark's. They say, why can't you get him on here more regularly? I think they're tired of Julia and myself, but nice stuff. And David James says both his boys are in junior sailing this week in Sausalito, and I'm sure this is the time of year when there's a lot of junior sailing going on around the country, around the world. I hope those of you in this country or the Americans outside the country had a good 4th of July on Tuesday. It seems to me, Craig, it's no longer a 4th of July day or a weekend. It's a bloody week. It seems like the whole week, because we started here at the lake on Saturday night with fireworks. And then there were fireworks again on Tuesday. And people say, well, don't you guys know the date? Well, they do it Saturday night here. Why?
Well, it's whatever's convenient, whatever time, people can get out on the Saturday night, and then all the logistics behind it. All the people who prepare the fireworks and the people who get them set up to shoot and the people who can shoot them. So there's that, and then what's the best night? It happens to fall on a weekend. Typically it's a Friday or a Saturday night. So although the 4th may show up on a Tuesday, they usually pick the 4th of the fireworks night to be a weekend night.
Yeah, my dad told me it was the first Saturday of the month of July.
That probably makes sense. Yeah.
And of course, there's fireworks. As I said, it's become sort of a fireworks week.
Yeah.
There were fireworks here on Tuesday night. I'm sure there's another big one somewhere on Saturday night, I heard.
So there's a lot of different, there's 7 or 8 lakes here on this whole chain, and there'll be people that hold fireworks displays on several different lakes, so they all don't want to time them on the same night,
for sure,
because then they can't show up to all of them. So they split them up, find out who's doing which when, and then show up at different times.
And a big display in Ann Arbor, which is about 20 minutes behind us,
as always,
to the southeast.
Yep.
So if you did celebrate it, or if you're still celebrating what we're calling 4th of July week, that's what's going on here in this country, at least. And we're celebrating it, too. I'm here until next Tuesday. By the way, no show next Tuesday. I'm flying Tuesday back to San Francisco, and I don't want to record a show on Monday. I'm on vacation. I don't want to record a show. So we'll be live again next Friday, a week from today. May I ask you, Craig, do you know what day it is today? What special holiday? We try to choose a good world international holiday. Do you know what day it is today?
You got me.
Okay, here is your first clue on the monitor. Any idea?
Still no.
Are those people nude, or are they otherwise?
Oh, they look, well, could be a few nude, yeah.
It could be.
They all got white pants on.
This is International Skinny Dip Day. It's okay. Today's the 7th here, but we also like to celebrate days down under, because we have so many viewers in Australia and New Zealand across the dateline, where it is today, July 8th, 2023. And on International Skinny Dip Day, people have been skinny dipping, and this is from a British website, but they've been skinny dipping for years. As early as 1449, a local newspaper in Bath in the UK reported that, quote, people were shamelessly stripping themselves of their swimming garments and revealing, think of that, themselves to bystanders as they took to the water, unquote, though it was not acceptable at the time. Some people were doing it. Soon after that, it became widely known that this was an activity many individuals participated in, yet It was never spoken about in everyday conversation, even after the artists. These are British artists of considerable repute. I looked them up today. Thomas Eakins, just after the America's Cup, the first cup in 1851. Well, they were painting this stuff in 1885 and 1922. But the Victorians in the UK, Queen Victoria, of course, she and her husband started the America's Cup in 1851. I don't think they approved. I don't think they
Probably not
like this
that
too
time
much.
frame in life.
Warren Chaucer checking in from Brisbane. And, of course, Gordon Smith, he's usually got it. He says, see that nude bathing day. He got it. No, it's not World. It is also World Chocolate Day. Baton Rouge in Charleston saw that. Groover is weighing in. A lot of people. Let's rats shave day. Yes, Stingray. I'll shave next week. Julia will not be amused. What if you are not skinny? Well, we're going to come to that because maybe it's not skinny dipping for some of us. Then you're just dipping, Groover says. Hi, Steve. In the Victorian era, Gordon Smith in Denmark is saying it was normal for men to bathe nude, although swimming costumes were used later in the period. Of course, women weren't allowed, or it was frowned upon if women were swimming nude. Craig, did you, growing up in this country, people don't realize, as kids like your grandkids and others even, only 10, 15 years younger than I, and you're what? You're 60-something?
65.
So you're a few years younger than I. You're 5 years younger than I. But did you ever go to the YMCA in this country and have full-on nude swimming as a kid?
No. We were in the lake all the time, so we didn't need to go to the
swimming
YMCA.
in the lake.
Absolutely.
We did too.
Yeah.
We'd usually wait because it was mixed co-ed
Sure.
nude skinny dipping here
Yep.
at the lake, and we'd run out the end of the dock
Yep.
and take our bathing suit off before anybody could see our little, as
Yep.
Prince Harry said, our little todgers. And they got littler when we hopped in the lake. It's bloody cold. Okay, enough of all that. You got to talk. Denise Peterson. Hi, Denise. Replying to Pedro Foiling Sailor. Yeah, no. Well, maybe Julia never gets with a Fozzie. Hi, Rick Banner again. Every day is Skinny Dip Day in Australia. I know Pedro Foiling Sailor Peter Stevenson in Sydney. Presumably in Sydney, Warren Chaucer, another Aussie, National Paramedics Day today in Oz. You have, in Australia, you have some kind of a National Nudity Day, I think we celebrated on this show. Why not? 2 or 3 months ago, something like that. Speaking of which, some people don't skinny dip. Welcome to our pool. Welcome to our lake. We don't skinny dip. We chunky dunk. The live studio audience can laugh if you think that's funny. Huh? They don't think it's funny, I guess. We chunky dunk, some of us. Okay, so there it is. One of you called it, and we got it. Sailor conservationist Craig Kivi, past Commodore of Portage Yacht Club, is our guest today here in studio. Delighted to have him with us. And we're going to talk about a special project he's doing. He's a lifelong racing sailor, a hell of a good sailor. I grew up sailing with some of his family. Did we ever race together?
No. You were ahead of me. My brothers and you raced together, crewed for you in Sears Cup competitions, and then tried to keep up with you in the Interlakes and so forth.
Well, you're doing more than that. By the way, you asked when you sat down, you politely asked about, did we race last night? And we did.
Yeah.
And as you probably know, Clark Chapin, sitting in the back of the room here, won 2 of the 3 races.
I'm shocked.
So once again,
I'm just shocked.
Once again, he won the night. And I managed with Alfredo Martible crewing. He doing only his 7th, 8th, and 9th races, I think. And finally we got the kite going. But we managed to win the last race of the evening when it had died down. It got a little lighter and we could handle. But Clark won again. Clark is the best. All hail Commodore Chapin, right?
Definitely.
Right? You can do that again and we can see that.
Definitely.
Let's do our report, and this is from last evening from John Emmett, who's checking in, still in Poland. That regatta wraps up this weekend. He says he's doing okay. He's on the podium, top 5 anyway. Thinks he's going to end on the podium where they are sailing at the ILCA 6 Youth and Men's World Championship there in, I won't try to pronounce that name because I butcher it every time, but there's a lot of teams there, 375 entries from 48 countries. And in the men's division, this is the ILCA 6, the laser radial, we used to think of it. And sailing there are some of the men, the skinnier, the ones who go skinny dipping.
Yeah.
and including John Emmett, who's very fit, our Olympic coach, and our Fozy, super Fozy John Emmett, and he checked in last night with this report from Poland.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. I'm sure you can tell from the background noise, I'm walking along the beach here in Poland. A very pleasant evening. In fact, it does feel that the days are really long here. And I do think probably a top tip for people travelling, if you like a dark room, is full-on blackout curtains. Work really well. It fills my room, which is absolutely wonderful. And the staff, who could be more helpful, the curtains, they don't actually match the size of the windows, but there we go. Hopefully I'll make it on the show because we've got very variable start times. So I'm recording this the day before in the evening because it looks like we're waiting for sea breeze. But you know, if it's lots of daylight, there's no reason why we can't race very late. I was incredibly impressed with Kiel that we had this, you know, late finishes, and they managed to get lots of races in despite a difficult weather forecast. And I think this is something which is very important. So Friday, which is obviously live show time, I may well still be at the sailing club when it's going on, but we'll see how it goes. We're looking at a late start because we're hoping to get racing in the sea breeze. It's quite interesting as I walk along, I can see a few sailors in the background. I won't disturb them, but if I turn it round, you'd see some of the British team here chilling out after a hard day. So at the time of writing, we've just had a qualifying series. So the use of the gold, silver, bronze, and I believe emerald. It's a very busy regatta. About 400 boats. So it's actually a nice problem to have, that it's incredibly hard to stick them all in the boat pot. But there we go. So yeah, youth, that's the future of tomorrow. And I really hope that a lot of the people we see now sailing are still going to be sailing in 20 years' time, because that's such an important thing for the future of our sport. And then for me, I think it's interesting, having done so many regattas, and I remember being in this venue maybe 9 years ago, is it's just this, you know, you're always learning, and actually sailing styles, techniques change, and you never, I don't know, you never stop learning. And for me, I've made quite a few mistakes, and that's just not having, you know, that constant racing. And that's why constant racing is so important. So yeah, I think as a coach, you know, when people make mistakes, I see a lot of the parents here looking a little bit frustrated, but believe me, no sailor ever wants to have a bad day. And it's very easy to make the mistakes, which from a distance, you know, it seems quite obvious. You know, there's more, nearly fell down a rabbit hole. Well, not a rabbit hole, I don't think there's that many rabbits, but yeah, I mean, it's easy to see these mistakes in hindsight. And from a coach way, everything's much clearer. You know, there's more pressure here, or it's a slow, gradual shift. And when you're actually sailing in the heat of battle and you have so many things going on, it's not so easy to see. In fact, that's one of the reasons why it's so important just to keep racing, because that stuff becomes instinctual. So when you start to run out of pressure, you immediately put attack in. Well, you realise your time and distance for crossing off a boat or not. I mean, personally, I've had to do a 720 where you're not sure whether you have that easy cross or not. So yeah, I would really advise people when they're young to obviously attend as many regattas as you can as youth sailors. There's only a very limited number of youth regattas you can do, but that regular competition, it's so important. Now, the other thing going on at the moment is in Marseille with the test event just coming around the corner. Was going to be doing that for the Chinese, but actually I've decided to stay home and go and see Lily. It'd be very ironic if I spent a month in the south of France coaching the Chinese whilst Lily was back in Weymouth, so I'll keep you updated on that. But yeah, this regular regatta, it's very important. And that's why Marseille is so important, because it's a regular regatta at probably the most important sailing venue for this 4-year cycle. So I will try and give you some of my thoughts on that, as well as, you know, really thinking about youth sailing and what that means for the future. But I'm going to stop now. Internet is not wonderful, but hopefully I'll be able to get this all uploaded and to Tom, and hopefully see you on the show, but we'll see.
Craig, I don't know. You've probably not met the gentleman. He gives us a report from wherever in the world he is every show. Has done it for several
terrific.
years. John Emmett, he's a super good Olympic coach, super good sailor himself, obviously. There were two very bothersome things I thought about John's report. One, that is, he's confirming what I know, and that is I'm not sailing enough. No wonder I get beaten by, we go out there and get beaten by Clark. The other thing is that during that report, did you see what Clark did?
Yeah.
He moved
up.
He moved from the back of the hall here at the Portage Yacht Club. He moved right up so he could see and hear the monitor real up close and personal. I think Clark wanted not to miss any tips. Let's see if I don't manage not our fancy tripods, which are wine bottles we showed you the other day. Same setup. Thanks, John Emmett. Great report as always. John Emmett Sailing. Get to the front of the fleet. And he mentioned that next week, of course, is the start of we used to call it the pre-Olympic regatta. It's now called the Olympic Test event in Marseille, which is the Summer Olympics next summer in Paris. The sailing, of course, down on the Med in Marseille. And John, this morning we were texting back and forth, and I don't think he's going to go to Marseille. I think he's going to go home and spend some time with his wife, the lovely and talented and gold medalist Lily Zhu. So thanks, John, for that. And if John were here, Craig, you can give us this, because he would always say at this stage.
Oh, like, follow, and share.
Exactly. That was well done. We didn't practice. We didn't
That's
rehearse
all right.
that either.
Cut it in any key.
And John says, yeah, please subscribe to and share it to your own Facebook page, and we appreciate very much. Clark Chapin always does that, but he's here in studio with us, as is our guest, sailor conservationist Craig Kivi. I've known him all my life. He's a lifelong racing sailor, a realtor, an entrepreneur, and a lake resident. In fact, Craig, I don't know, I guess you know this. Your dad, your late great Lou Kivi, and your mom, two of the nicest people on the lake, founders of what was then here in Portage Yacht Club in 1953, the year I was born. And your dad, I've had two pretty good sized major back operations. Did you know your dad did those?
I didn't know that.
He did. Your dad, who was an orthopedic surgeon, orthopod, he and another neurosurgeon took care of my back when I was 20.
No.
And then again at 30.
That's sailors.
Yeah, sailors. And the other sport that's really bad for your lower back?
Well, you told me the other night, hockey, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The two worst sports for your lower back. We'll get to Craig in a sec. We'll do a Bravo Zulu, because we got at least one piece of news I think we should cover from the Transpac race. Our Fozy John Sangmeister is not doing very well. Rock and Roll, PYC, Bad Pack, they're all, because it was so light when they started in, what was it, Clark, last Saturday, right? That the Transpac started. The fast boat started, I think, Saturday. There was a Tuesday start and a Thursday. The slower boat started earlier in the week, but I think Saturday the fast boat started, and it was really light. They got stuck with a light regime, including our Super Fozy, John Sangmeister and his family and team and partner. But Bravo Zulu 2, Justin Schaefer's Orion, the Mod 70, they were first to finished in just the last little bit. Justin Schaefer, who was head of that Long Beach Yacht Club America's Cup Challenge in the last go-around, but he's back and sailing well. He's a hell of a good sailor. And this morning at 02:48 Hawaii Standard Time, they don't go on daylight time in Hawaii. Smart people that they are. Justin Schaefer's Mod 70 Orion crossed the finish line at Diamond Head as the first finisher in the 2023 Transpac. Their elapsed time of 4 days, 17 hours, 48 minutes, fell short of breaking the Mully Hull course record of 4 days, 6 hours and change, set by HLN Lowe's Orma 60 Mighty Merlo in 2017. But impressive nonetheless, considering the slow start last week's Saturday starters encountered while getting off the California coast. And that's why I think the big boats were seeing Bad Pack and Rock and Roll. Oh, I can't hit the table. My camera shakes. Bad Pack, Rock and Roll, and PYC and so on, why they're all struggling still. But they did nonetheless have a good run, and among both Mully Hulls and monohulls, in fact, the big Maldies have all finished. Now I checked the tracker a few minutes ago. Among both multis and monohulls, this is nonetheless the 6th fastest elapsed time in the entire history of the Transpac, first sailed in 1906. So bravo Zulu to Team Orion. And there's some familiar names and faces there, including Mark, the photo was Mark Brouch, but Paul Allen, Hogan Beatty, Morgan Larson, one of the best sailors in the history of this country. Cammie Lewis, of course, another longtime friend, great sailor. Matt Noble and Justin Schaefer himself. Bravo Zulu, gentlemen, for your win in that race. Okay, let's get on with our featured guest today, Craig Kivi. Delighted to have Commodore Kivi. What year did you serve as Commodore, by the way, Craig?
Late 80s.
So bloody hell, that's
I'm sorry, late 90s.
Late 90s.
Yeah.
So that's still 20 years ago.
That's a while ago.
Years ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you served Commodore more than once?
No, just one time.
A lot of people have. I mean, the club,
Oh, yeah.
It's shrunk down. Yeah. There's Clark saying we can fix that. Indeed. But tell us a little bit about this project. Where you said you wanted to start on this slide, this is your dock and your power butt. I don't see your interlake there on the hoist. We'll
Not
see
yet.
in another shot. But what the hell is this mess in your front yard?
So
Greg?
it's a little early for the interlake to get in. The ice just came off a couple weeks before, which gives us an opportunity to get at this crap. This is one of the displays that on the shore that shows the summation of 1,540 some pieces of garbage that we've removed from Portage Lake. And in fact,
over what period?
Well, over a 2-year period.
Only 2 years.
2 years. And my 2 grandchildren today got 2 more pieces. So anyways, it's amazing how much plastic and how much garbage is in our lakes. And you only understand it when you start observing and looking for it. And then once you see it and you start to get this stuff out of the lake, it's just, it really tugs at your heart that, we have that much garbage in our lakes that we sail on, that we swim in, that we fish on. And so we just had to do something about it. And we've had friends and family and my 2 grandkids helped take, this is a picture of 430 some pieces of garbage out of the lake on that day. It's hot, sweaty work. That stuff comes up.
How do you do it? You go around in a power boat and a rowboat, or what do you do?
So I go around in my power boat, and we've got plastic laid down on it, and we've got garbage cans and garbage bags, and we design these long hooks on bamboo poles to be able to snag the grocery bags and the beverage bottles, both glass and plastic, and every imaginable thing. We got tires, we got chase lounges, tarps, building Tyvek, foam, every imaginable thing you can think of ends up in the lakes.
Now, you just started this on your goodness of your own heart. I mean, your own volition. This is not a government project.
No.
It's not funded by the government.
No.
It's just all volunteers.
It is. It's all volunteer. It's part of what we do. I have a 501(c) called Natural Shorelines Forever. And there's a lot of donations to that organization. We formed that organization primarily to get the right people together and also to be able to get donations. But we haven't spent any of that money on this. This is just sweat. It's pure sweat. Poison ivy and everything else. We have to get it off the shore, and it's just incredibly hard work. But we want to do something with our hands. There's a lot of talk what should be done and who's to blame? I don't really care about any of that. We wanted to go out and just start grabbing this, and it's simpler than you think to decide to do it and go do it. The work is tremendously hard, but when you decide that I sailed on this lake all my life, and I've watched this water, I've been in the water, and who hasn't walked a sunfish or a opti or a laser out and walked on the bottom of the lake and thought, how beautiful is this? It's not an exaggeration to say that these lakes can get sick enough to where we can't sail on them anymore. That's not an exaggeration. The only time people will say, well, how could this possibly have happened? They'll say that when it's happened. But, I just am so in love with this lake that this kind of thing, when I see this, I just have to get it out of the lake.
How many people do you have engaged in picking up this crap?
So my grandkids have done it with me. There's been friends that have done it with me. There's been some corporate people that have said, hey, look, my company wants me to donate some of my time to to a conservation effort. And so they've come out and done that. And just jump on the boat very informally. You just need waders and, light clothes and a T-shirt, and just be prepared for any kind of weather.
Well, and it's not like there are a lot of big businesses around this lake. I suppose that this club, Portage Yacht Club, is the biggest business on the lake. You've got a couple, three others over here on the east side of the lake.
Yeah.
But it must mostly be individuals.
It's mostly individuals, but we'll get to how important Portage Yacht Club was to the other effort that we have going on that benefits the health of the lake. And that's what this is all about. This is all about trying to make the lake more healthy with direct hands-on effort. And not waiting for legislation or getting into the political fight and all that. Look, I don't care about any of that crap. We just got to get this done. And so our initial goal was 500 pieces out of the lake. And then we passed 1,000. And then we just passed 1,500. So now the goal is 2,000. I don't know where it's going to end.
Lots of questions rolling in here.
Yeah.
Somebody, I've lost it off the top of the question list, but what do you think is the primary source of this junk?
It's pretty diverse. There is some blow-ins from just trash that people lose out of their garbage cans. But I will just tell you, a lot of it is just plain boaters throwing the garbage over the side. I've tried not to be negative and tried to be positive, but the evidence for me, when you pick up these things and you actually pick up 1,500 pieces, you get a pretty good statistical sample of what it is. And a lot of it is just pure, I don't think people care in a lot of cases. So it takes somebody to care to come and make up for that, is the point.
People are saying I should talk into the microphone. Is that better? Yeah, I think this is Clayton Allen. Hi, Clayton. Embley saying, I love that you don't assign blame, just clean up as you go.
No.
Well done.
I love that. That's the right, wrong, good, bad, who's right, who's wrong, political fight stuff does nothing but put the car in reverse and slam on the gas. This is just people that in their heart don't want this in the lake and just should go do something about it. And there's others. I need 10 of me to go out and get 15,000 pieces out of the lake. I'd like to turbo boost this and do a lot more.
Well,
but
you need 10 of you to get another 10 people to get another 10 people.
that's right.
Right? Craig, are people receptive when you go to somebody, a neighbor, you go to, say, Alan Stevens, our longtime mutual friend, say, hey, Al, not to pick on Alan.
Yeah.
Do you say, anybody else around the lake, do you say, come on and help me, let's go do this? Or people say, nah, that's the government's job, or that's your job, or I can't be bothered?
Well, it depends on the person. But I would say predominantly most people, you have to ask somebody who's, able-bodied and young enough to do this. It's hard work. But I would say people that have been on the lake for a while or participate in sports like sailing or fishing or water sports, if you ask them and tell them what you're doing, they thought, well, I never thought about that before. And we've designed special tools to be able to help do this. There is no commercial tools available to do this. You have to design the poles, the hooks, and the nets and that sort of thing to really go after this stuff.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of an organization that shares best practices that says, here's what we do at Portage Lake? We got so darn many good comments here. This is a guy called Graham Sweeney, who's by now, I've never met him, but he's a dear friend on here. He's on virtually every show. He's in Yell, Scotland, almost up to the very top. And he says on Shetland, we have what we call a red up. We all get together at the beginning of the tourist season to clear the beaches and roadsides. Our saying here is Duns Chuck Bruck. Yeah, that means something in Scottish that I don't quite understand. But somebody else, maybe you can reprise the comment from a few minutes ago. One of you put up saying that they'd taken a ton of garbage out of Lake Tahoe on July 5th.
Well, that would surprise me.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot, but maybe there was a huge corporate effort and more.
Yeah.
James Frederick Bland down on, what is that called, Lake Travis in Texas? I think it's in Austin, Lake Travis. James J. Frederick, remind me, during droughts, the shoreline is cleaned up in Austin, and there are scuba clubs.
Oh, wow.
That work at other times.
Yeah.
Isn't there a Boy Scout troop that comes out here, too, and helps clean up after the fireworks, for example, and some other events?
I'm not familiar with that. I do know there are a lot of organizations that do river cleanup on the Huron River. And they do pretty much the same type of thing, but I don't know about the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, it's confirming. I sailed at Lake Travis when I think University of Texas sails there when I was sailing for the University of Michigan. Steve Gruber saying, I clean plastic off the beach at all times, and it amazes me how many people ask me why. I tell them that a clean beach is nicer, and sometimes they help. But Donna Chuck Bruck means don't throw your trash. Okay, and I guess it's Scottish local, but it really is. I mean, we're right here behind us. I'm looking up on the monitor, but right here behind the two of us is what we call the park. And I don't know, what is this, Clark, a half an acre? You're the real estate
Acre.
guy.
You got a full acre
a
here.
full acre here. And there's picnic tables and tents back here. You can see the tent behind me over the shoulder to use for family reunions and birthday parties and so on. But it amazes me when the bottle tax came in, the recyclable, what was that back in, gosh, I was 70s, 60s?
Yeah.
70s, Clark says. When that came in, people stopped throwing not only the cans out because they're worth something now. In fact, I was up at the Bush's store, the big grocery store this morning, and there's a gigantic recycling kind of machine right in the lobby of the Bush's where people take their cans and bottles, you throw them in there, it's like they do the same thing in Germany. You get some sort of after you throw all the stuff in, you get a receipt, you go to the cashier, and they give you some money.
Right.
But that alone, the recycling here, I think Stingray will tell you it started probably in Washington or Oregon, didn't it? Even before in Michigan? Clark shaking his head, yes. So it's just astonishing what a difference that made out here in the park, for example. Because I used to, as a kid, we'd go out there and have to clean the thing up on Saturday morning, Sunday morning. A lot of people here Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning, and it was just atrocious on Mondays. And now people are quite a bit more conscientious. There's virtually no trash out here.
Yeah. And to be fair, some of the bottles and cans that we pull up are old vintage pop top bottles and don't have a deposit on the bottle or on the can. And my theory on that is we didn't catch it last year because we cleaned the same areas. But what happens is I think the lake actually starts to try to get that stuff out of its system and actually works its way out of the muck and so forth. There's no other explanation in my book because it shows up and it wasn't there the year before. So some of the stuff's old is my point.
A couple other cool comments. Graham Sweeney saying, again, this is in Scotland, the local authorities fund some things. They collect our gathered trash, often tons of ghost gear, discarded fishing nets. Well, you've got big commercial fishing up there. Gordon Smith in Denmark saying Denmark has a bottle return deposit, and it is calculated that more than 90% of cans and bottles are returned through the system. Rick Bannerow, who's normally on the Connecticut shore, graduation season, he says, is the worst around Long Island Sound with all the congratulations and class of XX Mylar balloons and banners.
Yeah.
I pick up 3 to 5 balloons floating in Long Island Sound every weekend. He's a superb photographer whom we had on the show not too long ago. Ed Worley, down in SoCal, when we were kids, we collected bottles from the neighborhood to get the deposit money to buy ourselves treats. Yep, I remember doing that. Replying to Rick Bannerow, we do the same. Ted Ryman down in Cape Town in South Africa. Wherever I am, I will pick up other people's rubbish and put in the bin. I detest lazy people that have no pride in the environment and drop their crap without a second glance. And you know what?
Bravo. Yeah.
Bravo Zulu to him.
Yeah.
My dad always said, if we would just walk down the sidewalk in Dexter or Pinckney or Ann Arbor, our local town, and you see a piece of paper, reach over and pick it up.
Yeah.
Okay, now in COVID times, people worried about getting COVID, but that's why you have the hand sanitizer in your car, right?
Right.
Pick the stuff up if you see a piece of paper, a wrapper, or something.
Yeah.
I go out in our street in San Francisco and pick stuff up off the street because we've got a tourist area right down at the end of our street called the Palace of Fine Arts. And it's astonishing what people drop right in front of our street. And I just go pick it up.
When I go for my daily walk in Plymouth, I'm always picking up, and I know where there are trash cans that are lining the houses.
Yeah.
And my point
Clark,
is,
we don't have you mic, so we'll get you on here. Why don't you come on after Craig? Not now. We'll get you on and remember some of these stories, but we don't have you mic, so we don't want to lose. But don't lose that thought, please. Clark does the same thing on his daily walk, and he knows where he can drop it off, it sounds like. Yeah. In San Francisco, some people will get mad at you if you drop it off. It's Thursday morning when they collect the bins, for example, and if you go put something in one of their bins, they get mad at you. I mean, why? Who cares what bin it goes in? Okay, I understand somebody takes their trash and puts it into a commercial bin in lieu of doing their own trash pickup and paying for it. Okay, we're getting into the weeds here. But what to do for Sailing Illustrated? This is now not Sailing Illustrated, is Rubbish Illustrated. Graham Sweeney again saying, if it's rubbish, it's all our rubbish. It's a human issue, not the lakes, the roads, or the beaches rubbish. Commodore?
I think that's true because, as I say, a lot of this blew in off of roads as well. People throwing things out of cars, and a grocery bag, a plastic grocery bag. I think that thing could probably travel a half a mile or so if it doesn't get snagged up just in the wind and tumbling and that sort of thing.
Look at this comment from remember Joe Holtzman, who grew up. He was an adult when he was sailing here, but we all raced against him in the esteemed Interlake class. Joe's out in Colorado now. I always carry a bag in my car and pick up trash consistently, but it's getting better. Colorado is a little bit better. Andrew Pindar in the UK. Andrew, I hope Foiling Week was a huge success at the end. Maybe we can get a report from you for next. We're not going to do a show on Tuesday, as I said, but next Friday's show. Andrew's saying one of the reasons why fireworks are being stopped in many places around the world, the spent cases become liberally strewn litter. Come back to that in a minute, because I know Stingray up in Seattle told me by text this morning that they've stopped fireworks in the state of Washington. Clayton Embley, when I was a kid, the returning of Coke bottles was a major cash influx out of my pocket. Somebody else said the same. Well said, sir, to Graham Sweeney. I think all of us would echo that. Chip VRO, I'm not sure. Welcome, Chip, on YouTube. If only we all picked, yeah, exactly. This is my dad always said, Craig, if only we all picked up one piece of trash when we see trash. You wouldn't, you wouldn't be able to get rid of the city's trash pickup, but you sure make a big cut in, especially here at the lake.
Yeah. I think it goes down one at a time, and I think if somebody picked up one, or if they picked up three, if everybody picked up three, it'd be all gone. And I hope we get to that point at some point.
Steve Gruber, who is a terrific sailor, sailed many, many ocean miles as well, including the, I don't remember, Steve, you did the Whitbread and the Volvo, but he said I saw plastic grocery bags in the Southern Ocean, miles from anywhere. They are literally all over the world, Craig.
Yeah, right. But I would say that maybe 5% of the content that we got was plastic grocery bags, and also regular garbage bags too, which are just as transportable by wind. I think the lighter stuff, there was a lot of the lighter stuff.
Aren't those bags supposed to be biodegradable now, the plastic?
I wish, but I don't think that's the case.
They're not.
I just don't think that's the case.
I'd like to think they are in California. I think in San Francisco, but I don't ever get plastic. I refuse. I decline.
Yeah.
And always get paper bags if I haven't taken my own bag.
Yeah.
Because paper bags then can get recycled as garbage bags. At least we do at the Beach Street Yacht Club. Steve sailed in the Volvo in 2001-02. What about shotgun and handgun litter? Do you find any guns out here, or?
Occasionally, we'll find a shotgun case from duck hunters. It's not the predominant content.
Okay, shall I go on to the next?
Yeah.
This is disturbing to think you pulled all that much trash.
That was one
basically day. Yourself in one day.
One day. Yeah. So we have 5 of those. So we're over 1,540 pieces. That's about 400, I think, that day.
Yeah, I zoomed that shot in just to make it. That is your dock out there.
Yeah.
Just almost. In fact, you can see the club right at the top of that photo. You can see the club where we are sitting, Portage Yacht Club. How about the wintertime? What's this shot all about?
So the second conservation effort that we are involved with is actually trying to improve the habitat of the lake. And all of this links back to the love of the water and, our sailing sport. It's not disconnected from our sailing sport. We need to sail on healthy lakes. If they become unhealthy, we don't have lakes. We don't have sailing. And so this effort is to restore the habitat of the lake, and so we try to increase the natural food webs that are in the lake and all the natural activities that go on. Because if a lake doesn't have a vibrant life system in it, it can get very sick, and then you get your blue-green algae, and you can't touch the water. Those are fun. No swimming means no sailing. It just does. So in this case, we, from Portage Yacht Club, took across the ice 55,000 pounds of trees, tree stumps, and logs with 2 major objectives. One was to try to reduce the erosion that was being taken place by our explosion of powerboat size and horsepower and numbers.
So a lot of wake from those power boats washing up against the shores, particularly this wetland over here, which we're going to come to in a sec.
That's right.
So why in the winter? Why do you go out and do? I never asked a question.
It's no problem.
I don't think I know. I think I know the answer to. But my brother Paul, who's here from Hawaii this week, says that he's helped in this effort as well.
Yeah. So in the wintertime, it was easy to transport 55,000 pounds of material across the ice. We did that with a giant farm wagon and an ATV.
How thick does the lake get?
That year it got 17 inches. So we mapped a one and a quarter mile course with flags and had to run the ATV and the farm wagon from flag to flag because there's plenty of springs on Portage Lake and there's plenty of inflow. So you have to know the lake before you start to transport things like that on the ice. That's the reason. But we're also we can't rely on ice in Michigan anymore. I don't think you should have to rely on that anyway. It only gives you 3 months of work time. So we now have these giant barges that are used to put in docks and take out lifts and that sort of thing. And we're doing some demonstrations with those to try to see if we can haul material across the lake and place it in particular areas to achieve our objectives. So yeah, just one more thing about the logs that you see that were placed there to try to prevent erosion. Yes, the one on the right. We tried to, that one. So we tried to go a natural route first, which was to try to see if we could trip up some of the wave energy before it reached the shore in the direction of the typical navigation that would make the waves roll over those logs. And so, everything's an experiment. So many of these boats are designed and engineered to throw giant waves the highest they can with the most energy. Well, good news for the recreation people who like to surf those waves. They've created the perfect engineered surfing wave. However, the unintended consequence, again, we're not going to say good, bad, right, wrong, and you're doing this bad thing that's just not helpful. The unintended consequence is that nature is woefully unprepared for a human engineered wave. It's prepared for wind waves. I mean, evolution has taken care of that by tree roots and by grass roots and by bush roots and that sort of thing. And everything else that stabilizes the shoreline helps it withstand wind waves. But you engineer a wave, and it's a nuclear bomb when it hits the shore. It's just woefully unprepared. So what we found was this experiment, even though those logs are 18-inch diameter, 20 feet long, 3,000 pounds apiece, they're not doing the job. So the next phase, we may have to go to rocks. Don't want to do it. It's incredibly expensive. We don't have the money for that. And we're just a small organization. But we may have to go to rocks, which are natural. And in Canada shield lakes, they're everywhere. That's what does prevent the erosion in a lot of
What's a Canada shield?
Yeah, so a Canada shield lake is a lake that that has a characteristic where most of it is rock and sand. And so, here we have a lot of, nutritious soils and more loamy type of shorelines and stuff. But sand and rock is very common in Canada and other places as well. But my point is that rocks are very common and they are natural. They're a natural wave barrier. I mean, the very nature of rocks is that it dissipates energy and doesn't reflect it back out into the lake. They've been, withstanding shoreline erosion for millions of years. They're really good at it. So that's going to have to be our next phase because we thought this was going to be bulletproof, but everything's an experiment and it didn't work. So on to the next phase.
Lots of questions and comments. Sorry, I'm not going to get to all these, but if Julia were here, she would remind all of us again to go back and read the comments. Jody Shield, hi Jody, is up early in Sydney, Australia. I watched the documentary during the week about Somali pirates and how they steal crude oil and make diesel from it, and the environmental damage they're doing is off the charts, yet nobody is doing anything about it. Yeah, unbelievable. And Joe Cool saying, super interesting point, Craig, that you're making about boat wakes versus natural. And Graham Sweeney, again up in Scotland, asking, have you tried wicker fencing?
No, we haven't tried that. There's a technique called brush bundles, which is to take a lot of saplings and bundle them together and put those along the shoreline, which would have the same permeability. We've not tried that yet.
Okay. And Steve Gruber back and forth with Baton Rouge, Baton Cannon down in Charleston. Same thing at Lake Otsego in upstate New York. Don't ever let your feet touch the bottom. Razor sharp. You want to talk about, I'm not sure why it's razor sharp at Lake Otsego. You want to talk about, Clark and I, in fact, were talking at dinner last night about the zebra, or as the Aussies and Kiwis would say, the zebra mussels. What's the status of zebra mussels that got into this lake, I guess, from the Great Lakes?
Yeah, so when they first came here, it was, every invasive, when it first comes into an ecosystem, it's game on. They have all this nutrients, and they can dominate the ecosystem.
No natural predators.
No natural predators, and so much food that's underutilized. However, in this case, Portage Lake goes through cycles where it's called an increase in population and a crash. And so that has really ebbed to where we don't see nearly as many zebra mussels as we used to, and nature is smarter than we are and always finds a way. And so the red ear sunfish and the pumpkin seed sunfish have found a way to eat them.
What? Wow.
They crack the shells, and so they, the zebra mussels were never here, and these pumpkin seed sunfish, never saw them before. It took a while, but nature's pretty smart.
So now they've got a natural predator or two here in the lake.
They have a natural predator. The flip side of that is that there's not enough nutrients for them to sustain themselves from that, because it takes a while. It takes a lot of energy to crush the
look
package.
at some more of these comments. That's interesting about the sunfish. I'm learning so much today, as usual, when we have a cool guest on, which most of our guests are cool. Replying to Graham Sweeney, have you tried a speed limit? And of course, we do have speed limits here on the rivers, and no wake, which under 5-4 knots. But you can't do that here on the lake. You can't get a speed limit.
So, over the years, I've watched legislation efforts, and I've watched regulation try to work, and I really have become quite frustrated with it and its inability both to legislation to become enacted, and then for the law enforcement agencies, marine patrols to be trained, and then for them to actually issue citations. That whole system, it hasn't worked here in Michigan on the Portage Chain of Lakes.
But there's no speed limit on the lake, is there?
Technically, there is a speed limit. There's the highway speed limit.
65?
So yeah, so you can go 60, 70 miles an hour on the lake. And it's not so much the speed, because we had ski boats that went that fast when we were kids, and they threw a 7-inch wake. Big deal. It dissipated in 100 feet. But that's these boats right now.
Plane and low displacement.
These boats now at a 30-degree angle with 700 horsepower and a 2-foot diameter prop. 700 horsepower squatting, and literally they're water plows. And so their purpose is not to go fast. Their purpose is to create large wakes.
And that's because they're pulling skiers behind them?
No, they're creating a surfing wake that then a person can actually take a surfboard.
Okay, skiing, surfing.
And well, it's unlike anything we've ever had. They actually create a surfing wave out here like it would be on the ocean. Not as high, but suitable.
Must be a nightmare. Can't we get those outlawed? I guess not.
No, well, here's a boating lobby. They're $350,000 a piece.
Yeah, those boats.
Yeah. And so you got a boating lobby that, they used to sell a boat for $50,000 and make a $10,000 margin.
Wow.
Now they can sell one at $350,000 and make $200,000.
And they're funding a big lobby to keep those boats going.
So efforts in that regard, back to the point, is, and I just thought, look, I can't fight that. What can I do? And so the effort, the energy, all your concentration, all your organization skills, they have to go into a direction where you can do something. And so that was the real change.
Yeah, there's fascinating fog machine saying, "Don't tread on my freedom," to have a 700 horsepower wakeboard boat with a 6-foot wake and a 650 acre lake. Rick Bannerow is replying and talking about the tinsel from Christmas trees. Stingray, tongue in cheek, I think Stingray up in Seattle, saying, do you find many, this is International Nudist Day or Nude Swimming Day or Skinny, do you find many bathing suits?
No bathing suits, a lot of hats though.
Only Stingray Clark would ask that, right? A lot of what?
Hats.
Hats?
Yeah.
Oh, sun hats. There's a really cool long comment here. Who's that from? I can't quite see. I think this is a conversation, Clark. Clark's off camera here but I really think you've got us all thinking, and we're getting more comments in a shorter period of time than most any show, unless we're talking about the America's Cup and some crutonicism in the cup where everybody's upset. Craig, this is fascinating, and I we should really try to maybe form some kind of an informal. There must be some informal cleanup type organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And
there are.
Maybe we can do that and share some best practice, because obviously you're doing some cool things here, and I think all of our FOSI, who are probably all like-minded, are saying, well, let's see what we can do. Ed Worley, surfing waves on lakes, I would think that could cause issues for the small boats.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
That's terrible.
And Ed, it's a good point. It's no wonder why we don't do any weekend racing out here to speak of
that's
anymore. Right, Craig?
Been a huge influence.
Yeah.
You know, I absolutely love light air racing. You know, the only time I ever got to sail with all my brothers, and we only had one sunfish, was 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's the light air.
Yeah.
And so all my training is on that. But I can tell you this, when a wakeboard boat wave hits you on the nose, you'll go backwards in a long way.
Yeah.
So you'll tack even if you don't need to,
Yeah.
and you can surf them going downwind.
Yeah.
And it's just it really has, well, the very nature of the wakeboard boat. I can give you a list, and I won't, but I could give you a list of probably 20 different recreational ambitions on a lake that can't be done when a wakeboard boat goes by. You can't stand up paddleboard. You can't kayak. You can't have kids out in a canoe, right? You can't hold an anchor when you're fishing. This is a very oppressive sport. Never mind the ecological damage that it does. It's the only sport that I know of that oppresses other recreational ambitions.
This is the wakeboard.
That's right. The wake itself. I mean, you can go out with your dinner, like you guys like to do out on the pontoon boat.
Yep.
If you get a wakeboard boat that comes by, it'll clear your dinner and drinks right off any table that you have.
God forbid the drinks.
Well, right.
The drinks.
Keep them in the bottle.
So we're on to something here, and the jet skis were the problem in the 80s and 90s, and everybody talked about them because they're noisy. But it's these, Fritz Mueller is saying jet skis are a menace too. So we need to do some work here on this. You would think Clark Chapin's a major domo in U.S. sailing. Clark, I wonder, is U.S. sailing? Can I ask you just a question off mic? Is U.S. sailing aware of this issue and thinking at all about it that you know of?
No.
No, the answer is no. So we need to get, at least in this country, U.S. sailing. Now, I can tell you from firsthand knowledge, having lived in Hamburg, Germany, where there's the two big lakes in downtown Hamburg, the Ulster, the Binnen Ulster, the small one, and then the Ausen, the outer Ulster. Powerboats are not permitted on those boats, except powerboats that are coaches for rowing, because there's a lot of rowing on those lakes, and one or two powerboats to run races. Most of the races start off the dock in front of the club, and otherwise powerboats are not. There may be one or two tourist type boats, ferry boats, for going out and having a nice dinner on the lake and drinks and cocktails and dinner and so on. But those boats go literally 4 or 5 knots max.
Right.
And they're big, wide things. They don't throw much of a wake anyway. And
we have some lakes around here that have horsepower restrictions and no motor lakes, and they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful.
To say nothing of what's the improvement for the shoreside ecology and so on. Okay, I think let's move on to another slide. We got so many comments. Let's see, they're talking, Jody Shields, they're talking about dump trucks that just dump the garbage into ocean waters. And what else? The zebra mussels, jet skis. Yeah, we read that one. We are discussing our recreation areas. We have all seen the issues and the changes. This is Graham Sweeney. The use of a wake boat is unsociable. Local bylaws have to reflect the respectful behavior so it is safe for all and sustainable. Craig.
Hey, I couldn't agree more. In a culture where we're always talking about fairness, let's talk about fairness in terms of recreation on a lake. Just for a second, in a different context, I understand. But in this context, that is not sharing the lake. That's one sport that gets to oppress and seal off 18, 19, 20 other sports.
Exactly. Whether you're fishing or you're just out for a quiet ride on the pond, what we call pontoon boats, float boats around the lake, obviously sailing, yacht racing. And so on. Okay.
And they don't have, and none of those other sports, all 18 or 19 or 20, don't have any effect on the one.
Exactly.
The one gets to go anytime. Everybody else has to be careful and not go when they're out. And, it's just common sense. It's humanity is what it is.
Well, it sounds like at a minimum there need to be some time restrictions.
That would be good.
That would be a start, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be.
How about this next slide?
Yeah.
Let's have a look at, this is your dock now with your Interlake. There, folks, we keep talking about the Interlake because Clark races one, and my dad has one, which I've been racing while here the last couple weeks. And it's an 18-foot boat. Clark gave you a pretty good rundown on last Friday's show, designed by Francis Swiseguth Clark in 1935. It's a hard chine boat, as you can see. That's Craig's boat, and it's was originally main and jib only, super rig, main and jib only, and it's very low aspect ratio, designed for use on Lake Erie. And then Clark, what year did the class add a spinnaker? Was that in the 60s, 70s, 60s? I remember spinnakers on Interlakes here in the 60s.
Yeah.
So, okay. So tell us, there's something, though, in the lower left corner of the shot, I suspect.
Yeah,
correct?
so we're the first ones that we know of in southeastern Michigan, maybe in southern Michigan, I don't know, maybe in Michigan, to actually integrate habitat, natural habitat, with the recreational activities that take place on a riparian or a lakefront owner's shoreline. We always want to talk about how conservation efforts and natural habitat and our recreation are exclusive. They're not. They can be integrated. And this is one of our trial cases where we showed that's absolutely can take place. So an interesting
because you wouldn't normally have cranes here? Oh, that's a crane, right?
No, we're exactly right. So what happens is you put the habitat in, you build it, they will come. You put the habitat in, and there's fish around there, there's minnows in there, there's crayfish, there's small aquatic insects, and that guy, that blue heron has decided it's a good place to hunt.
Well, what did you do, though, to create create
Sure.
that area?
Yeah, so I cut down three dead 14-foot trees, and then we got an eagle permit, a permit from the state of Michigan to do this. And then we just crisscrossed the stumps on the shoreline and drove stakes down through it, and that's it. That's it. So we, and why do we do this? Just very quickly, why do we do this? Because what you're looking at in terms of the tree in the water, that if a natural lake in Canada or in Upper Michigan that hasn't been touched by human beings has one of those trees in the water, sticking out in the water, laying on the bottom, every 75 feet all the way around the lake, every 75 feet. That's an average. And that's what, for millions of years, that's how the lake has evolved. And that's how, they call it recruiting. The lake is always trying to pull trees to fall into the lake.
Right.
That's the natural, succession of nature. And so there's a reason for that. Why? I don't know. Scientists are starting to unravel that. I think of it as a kidney or liver or lung. I don't care what it is, but we tore all of them out. Culturally, we came to the shoreline and we said, no. We want all that junk out of there. We want our docks, boats, and we want our seawalls put in there. And we wonder why the lakes are sick. Well, we can put some of it back to 75, a tree every 75 feet? Of course not. But we can start to put some of them back. And this is a demonstration site where it absolutely works. I can walk in and out of that lake. I could get in and out of a sunfish. I can put my dock in, take my dock out. I can do all the recreational things I want to, plus integrate a natural feature that augments and supports and increases wildlife in the area. It can be done. It's been done.
Cool. Yeah, well, look at it right here in front of your cottage.
Yep.
You call it a cottage because it was a cottage when you grew up, but what's the impact? Because as you and I and everyone else around the lake, thanks, AP. Well, no, we got a little sparkling. Oh, you got one for him too. Thanks, Alfredo.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
As everyone knows, when we grew up here, we were talking with my brother Paul the other night. What was it? Something like 10% of the houses around the lake, they were literally cottages. They were seasonal dwellings, not occupied year-round, summer playgrounds.
Yep.
Now, most of these homes are year-round.
Yeah, and along with that comes an evolution and a change of the shoreline. Because when we were cottages, it was like, well, if you want a break wall, you're gonna bring a truck and get a bunch of rocks and put the rocks out there. Very natural. That's fine. Now we have to have fine-cut Kentucky bluegrass up to a solid steel seawall that goes straight down.
Oh, I saw
and
a lot
we
of
need
those.
to have and we need to have completely pure, perfect sand out as far as we can see. that is so foreign to the way natural lakes are, but we created that culture, and now we can't understand why the lakes are getting
You're
sick.
right. I saw so many
Yeah.
of these steel pilings, these sheet, what do you call it?
Well, it's a solid seawall. Now the DNR and Eagle are
DNR being?
Department of Natural Resources or our Department of Environmental Quality both call that hard armoring of a shoreline.
Is that legal?
It's legal. It's legal. Now they are starting to back off on that and make percentages of it be natural. The problem is 85% of Portage Lake is hard armored. Now,
Already?
Yes. Now here's what happens in hard armoring. If you think of the interface between the water and the shoreline, you got the water and you've got dirt, grass, bushes, and trees, okay? That interface is millions of years old. That's how the lake exchanges its wastes, right? So we come along and we seal it off with steel
Or
and
concrete,
vinyl
yeah.
or concrete. Literally, in layman's terms, we keep the lake from going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know, my daughter, who's a marine scientist, she compares it to the cell wall, which exchanges nutrients and waste through the cell wall, a natural shoreline. And we come along and we're smarter, so we're just going to seal that off with steel. And so now we're trying to back that out slowly but surely, you know, like everything.
You making
It's far
progress?
more, yeah, we are. It's far more of a cultural shift than it is anything else, because people got used to this. And so what you're talking about sounds crazy, right? You're an environmental wacko, you're a tree hugger. Look, I'm a conservative. What am I doing this for? Right? Because it's an absolute conviction. That's why, right?
Well, it's for
So,
quality of life of
it
you
is.
and everybody else around the lake.
That's right.
And my dad, who's now 90, and I'm sure supports you 100% in your efforts and everyone else's, but he and a bunch of guys and gals, but families around this lake, back in the 60s, got the money and the permission to build the dam in
Yeah.
the river to keep the lake levels
Yeah.
consistent up. And that has made all of these lakes, and as you say, the chain of lakes north of us. But more importantly, they did the sewer system.
Yes, that was huge,
And
Tom.
sewered
Yeah.
all, and a lot of people opposed it, but they got,
Yep.
they had to do a bond, they had to do a levy for all the homeowners. They had to, everybody was required to connect their sewers, their septic tanks, their plumbing to the sewer, and then there's a tap charge that goes
Yeah,
with that.
fine.
Right, and
It's a deal.
and it's funded, and they've got a several $1 million in the kitty, so they're in good shape, and that
Yeah.
was huge in terms of cleaning up the lake.
It
right?
was. We had septic fields leaching into the lake, so we can do this stuff. It's not hard. We can do it.
It is.
It's just
hard,
a culture. Well, it's a culturally hard.
It is hard.
You know, logically and with people's engineering knowledge and their ability to get things done. That's not hard. The cultural part is what's hard.
There are so many comments. I'm sorry I'm not getting to these, but Fritz Mueller down in Miami saying we have mangroves around here which function the same way as barriers and habitat, even though they're protected. People and developers get away all the time with removing them. Problem is that people don't think. Yeah, James Frederick Bland, who went to the Naval Academy and is a submariner and a very bright guy. Stingray, my favorite marine biologist was George Costanza. Is that a joke? What's that mean, Clark? Oh, from Seinfeld. Steve Gruber, don't mess with Mother Nature. She is very good at what she does.
That's a great comment.
Indeed. Okay, lots of great comments. We need Craig's, this is Fritz Mueller saying, thinking around here in Miami. I think we need a collective effort, and we need to revisit this topic, not just when I get to Portage Lake to see Craig.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for coming over and
Yeah.
spending the time with us. We got another, few minutes to carry on.
Sure.
On the beaches and marshes in my hometown, and this is Baton Kennan, a.k.a. Baton Rouge, who is in Charleston normally. On the beaches and marshes in my town, the ordinance has a critical line, which is a 30-foot setback beyond the normal high water mark.
That's somebody thinking.
Sounds like natural habitat.
it does.
30 feet back.
It does.
So to your point about
Yeah, leave it alone.
the lake, yeah, cool stuff. How about this next? Shall we look at this next
Yeah.
picture?
So the results. I'm always interested in what the results are. There's no sense in doing any of this stuff just to tell people you're an environmentalist or anything like that. What are the results? Results are when we put in the trees out into the water and that sort of thing, created this habitat. It was an explosion of life. I had to trust the scientists. I said, well, yeah, they told me it would really be something, you can't believe it, and I never saw it before. But afterward, when I drove the boat back down by there and was driving down through there, and I saw I've got a picture of turtles here. And the reason I got a picture of turtles here is because some of this wood is out of the water. And we don't have any wood sticking out of the water for turtles to get out in the sun. For crying out loud, they're cold-blooded creatures.
Right.
They've got to be able to regulate their body temperature and get out of the water every once in a while. And the reason we don't have any is because we tore all of the trees and everything out of the water. So we have trees along the shoreline, that's great, but turtles aren't stupid. They want 8 to 10 feet of separation from the shore to the first, right, for predators. So when we put that out there, this is just 2 turtles, and I'll tell you, 10 of them fell off the log on the way there. So it was very, very satisfying to see wildlife utilization, we call it, within a very short period of time. So that's the turtle picture.
Okay. Another cool comment. J. Frederick Bland saying, we're lucky if anyone considers an impact beyond next week. I think that's the other problem. Is
That's
that people,
cultural. Yeah.
People are just thinking
Yeah.
short term about
Yeah.
just about everything, right?
Yeah.
Craig, your final slide
Yeah.
is here, and this
So-
is obviously underwater.
We had the Department of Environmental Quality and DNR. And by the way, this is a 2,700 foot shoreline that I purchased and am doing this project on. And so on Portage Lake, which was available, and luckily we got it because I've already had offers from
Okay, now, hold
developers.
on, slow down.
Yeah, sure.
I understand this, and I'm going to try something here to see if I can get your camera spun around here.
Yeah.
It's not going to show
Oh, yeah.
very well because it's bright outside, and that isn't going to work. But
That's
let
okay.
me just describe it here
Yep.
as best I can for everybody. Up on this lake is shaped like a keyhole. I think some other people look like it's shaped like other things, Clark, but to me it looks like a keyhole. I should have put a
I should
diagram
have sent
in
you
here.
that slide, Tom. I'm
But
sorry.
it's narrow at the top, and it's got a big round bowl at the bottom where we do most of the racing down here. And that works really well. The sailboats tend to stay down here. The skiers go up to the north end of the lake, and we got some problem. But then on the northwest side of the lake, Craig, there's how much footage
2,700 feet.
that's been there since forever
Yeah.
and has never been developed by developers.
Correct.
Why?
It has 10 acres, 12 acres of wetlands behind it, and an undiscoverable easement that nobody knew about. My title company found it, but I wasn't going to tell anybody about it. A road to it. The theory is that it couldn't be developed because it's a wetland. That's complete 100% nonsense. One of my developer friends who has developed several properties said, Craig, not only would somebody develop that saturated wetland and that natural shoreline, but they would enjoy doing it. You'd be given a good reason to get out of bed in the morning. Everything would be like in Tybee, everything would be on pillars. There'd be a suspension bridge out to it, $1 million condos with boat wells you could drive in under your house. So don't for a second think they couldn't develop it. So I watched that ever since I was crying out loud in diapers. I've been going along that shoreline, and when it came up for sale, it was attached to another piece of property. So we had to work with that seller for about 2 years to get him to separate that off and give him what he wanted for it. So we bought it, and incidentally, it's 2 parcels. One's named the Lewis P. Kivi Natural Shoreline Preserve.
For your dad?
For my dad. The other one's named the Norman A. Wood Natural Shoreline Preserve. My great-grandfather, who was curator of birds at University of Michigan in 1919. So anyways, so our plan is to take that entire property and to sell it to a conservancy. We have not yet chosen one, and then to sell the development rights to another conservancy. We want to lock that forever from not being developed. That's the goal. And I say I've had 3 offers already on the property because it's the only property left on Portage Lake, and it's very, very high value.
Well, it's got to be one of the only properties left on the whole chain of
Absolutely, it is.
lakes up
It
and
is.
down the Huron River.
It is. And 2,700 feet of natural shoreline. Portage Lake land goes for $3,400 a foot, a lineal foot
of waterfront.
of waterfront
$3,400
per foot.
per
That's
foot.
an appraised value, not a real estate made up value.
So
That's a big number.
It's all about waterfront.
Absolutely.
It's not how deep you are.
No, and the pressure just keeps getting more and more and more. And on Portage Lake here, we actually had a wetland that got developed right down the road from here, Tom, right?
Yep.
It's called the Woods, and they developed right up to the edge of the wetland, and they couldn't go all the way to the wetlands edge, to the water's edge. So what they do, they put boardwalks out there, same kind of thing, so they can spill oils and stuff all over. Anyways, back to the slide that you asked me about. Yeah. So when we put these trees in the water, and about 9 months later, officials from the Department of Environmental Quality and the DNR came out, jumped in the water with wetsuits and masks and snorkels and high quality cameras. This is a picture that has 17 fish in it, and this is a picture of just one corner of one tree, and there are 33 trees along that shoreline, and this is just after 9 months. So this is where there were no fish before. We provided habitat for them, and it just exploded. And there's also diversity of fish in there as well. There's perch, which are rare in Portage Lake. There's bluegills. There's sunfish. There's largemouth bass. So there's plenty of objective evidence that installing habitat in fresh water increases the wildlife and the biological activity in that area. In a very short period of time, nature knows what to do. So
now there's a comment here, in fact, from, I may have lost it, from J. Frederick Bland going up the list, and he's saying good news. The good news is that nature, Mother Nature, Father Nature know what they're doing because they know how to repair things if given the chance. DDT in 1969 being an example, when all the fish were eating raptors were almost extinct, and only 50 years later they have mostly recovered. Alan Long, money. But you know what? It's more than money. The money, right, Craig? The money can be found. It's more an issue of finding people like you and others who are motivated and to get people together to do these sorts of things.
Absolutely. What I wanted to prove also in doing this is that we don't have to wait to get a government agency involved. We don't have to apply for a grant for 2 years later. We don't have to form an organization. My organization has 3 directors. That's it. We don't have to have a giant organization. We don't have to do all kinds of fundraising. We did this on $25,000. That's it. And that was from people hearing about the project and come. I had one guy walk into my office and say, "Here's 5 $100 bills. I believe in what you're doing and I don't want a receipt." Well, how many people are like that out there? And so I wanted to prove a small little organization, a no-name guy, could go do something significant like that just to show, what if you magnified this times 10, times 100? This is a ton of progress, but what kind of progress could you make using the same model? Because we're not going to get involved in politics, not going to get involved in fighting or any of that stuff. The focus is really on let's get something done.
Well, and I think your personality, again, I've known you all my life, and you've been this way. You are a clear voice and a persuasive voice, and you have natural enthusiasm, and everybody knows you're a hell of a nice guy. Pedro Foiling Sailor saying, Tom, your guest doing the right thing brings you happiness. Yes, not money.
Absolutely.
Good point. Thank you, Peter.
Absolutely.
Peter Stevenson, he's in Sydney. Graham Sweeney, those that love their lakes and rivers and oceans need to be the voice for those areas. Defend your living environment. Be the change. Julie Ahrens. Hi, Julie. She's in Cleveland normally. We must learn to leave Mother Nature alone.
Yep.
And Stingray up in Seattle, I have watched Seattle's Lake Washington return from polluted to beautifully clean over only 30 years. In fact, I think you and I and Clark and everyone else who sail on the Great Lakes, Clark does a lot. He sails his interlake, the Lake Erie. And I was in Cleveland, Julie Ahrens. I was in Cleveland, and what was that, 69? Maybe your brother Dave was crewing for me.
Could have been.
Now that I think about it. We were
very
sailing
well
in
done.
some Sears semifinal when the Cuyahoga River caught fire in downtown Cleveland. We have people on here from Houston, Galveston, and remember the Houston shipping canal caught fire too about the same time. Burned the riprap, burned all the stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when a Republican, that was Nixon and Ford, Gerald Ford and Richard Nixon, got the EPA together, right? Mm-hmm. And it takes people from both sides of the political aisle, the party, to get this going.
It does, and I'll say again, the discussions that I've seen where it gets into a right-left conservative liberal discussion. That, to me, that is slamming the putting the gears in reverse and hitting the gas. Part of our organization is that we don't get involved in any political matter. We don't get involved in, we don't support or defend any cause. Our focus is to get the wood in the water, trash out of the lake, wood in the water, and to enhance the biological activity in the lake and the natural health of the lake. Because back again, we're sailors. We may not have this at some point in time, and that's not alarmist stuff. We've had blue-green algae blooms in the Portage Chain Lakes, and they issued a no swimming advisory for 3 days. So this isn't nowhere. So it all comes back to that.
Some more comments, and then we'll wrap this up. Alistair Murray, hi. We're going to run an AAAA today. Alistair, thank you for your quick summary of your. This is a guy who's president of the Australian Sailing Federation, a national governing body like our U.S. Sailing. It's called Australian Sailing. Yeah. And he's a regular on here. He gives us a report. He's just, see, this is exactly the kind of thing, Clark Chapin, that U.S. Sailing should be doing. Yeah. This guy, who's a long time friend, a great, terrific sailor, tasers and other boats. He sails with his wife and his daughters and is just like most of the foes, he's just an all-around terrific guy. He's just gone as president of Australian Sailing to each of their state federations. They have X many state federations in Australia, and they go and have a forum, and they talk about the issues like getting more women into the sport, and I'm sure they're talking about the ecology of the water and cleaning the waters up as we see what's going on in the around the world race. It's something that our federation here and probably in every country should be doing, going around and talking to the yacht clubs, talking to the local yacht racing associations, talking to whatever are the regional organizations to find more Craig Kivis.
Well, and here's the philosophical point, too. We're using the lakes to have our sailboat regattas. We're using the resource. We're using it a lot. Many lakes, and shouldn't we be also taking care of them?
Sure.
I mean, that's just, to me, that's just I have a responsibility because I enjoyed this lake for all my life. I have a responsibility now to take care of it, ensure it for future generations. How about that?
As Graham Sweeney is saying, you have to educate and give reason to your actions so as to hand forward, just as you said it, Craig, forward the baton to whomever comes next to protect your lakes. Yeah. Julie Aarons down on Lake Erie. Cleveland, Lakefront, and Cuyahoga River are doing well now. Yes, since the EPA working with our national EPA working with Ontario and Canada cleaned up the Great Lakes. But she says it just takes good citizens who care about the lakes and rivers and oceans to get things done.
That's true.
Absolutely. Reverse Stingray's talking about his earlier comment. Alan Long, the river in Cleveland and the lakefront has come a long way due to the Cleveland Metro Parks not working with developers. Yeah. Well, you got to work with developers, but you got to have responsible development at the same time.
It can be both. It can be both. It doesn't have to be exclusive.
Craig, last comment to you. Wrap it up for us.
Well, to me, I've enjoyed the sport of sailboat racing, since I was 7 or 8 years old. I mean, one of my fondest memories is with Tom, who sailed a fireball over to my house one day when nobody should have been on the water in any kind of a boat. And I don't know if anybody knows what the Fireball rocket ship is, but it's how big is the Fireball?
16 feet 2 inches.
Okay, so it's 16 feet long, but it must have a 40-foot mast.
It's just light and fast.
Oh my God!
But a lot of Fireball sailors on here in what we call FOSI, our Friends of Sailing Illustrated.
So what a wonderful experience for a 12-year-old kid at that time. Came over, picked me up in a red Fireball. We went out and I was scared to death, and within an hour he's got me on the trapeze, running a spinnaker on a reach, and it's 16 feet long. Yeah. Well, there was 3 feet of the back of the boat still in the water. And as a 12-year-old kid, you talk about impressionable. Yeah. That thing went as fast as my fishing boat went. So, very fond memories. And so I feel like I owe it to the lake. The lakes are incredible environments. Look, we go out there and we sail and stuff, but you cannot keep from noticing how beautiful the water is, and looking into the water and seeing the vegetation, seeing the fish. And that is part of our experience too. So we need to take care of that.
Well, you fish. My brothers, I was never a big fisher person. That sounds like such a ridiculous word. Fisher person. We'll get used to it. Fishing and all the other swimming and all the other things you can do on the lake. Yeah. Keep the greedy developers away. Julie Aaron says, great insight, Craig. Thank you, from Graham Sweeney, replying to Jody Shields. Robotic electric marks. Yeah, I wonder how well those are working. I've talked to get Clark Chapin back on here to talk about that. Stingray, thank you so much for this interview, including for the fireball. Because Stingray, who grew up in South Africa, and now is living, he's a retired engineer at Boeing, and a very bright guy. He liked to sail fire, as did a lot of our foes. It's amazing how popular that boat has been in the UK and in Australia, still is. And of course here in the U.S. and Canada. Luca Craig, hi Luca. With the wake boats, can designated areas be created, a circuit of sorts, and the shore reinforced to suit?
Yeah.
You probably can't keep those people under control.
We hope that through education we can tell them, make them understand the unintended consequences of what they do. There are ways to mitigate the damages that are done. It's just a matter of trying to find the right way forward.
Okay. Electric marks are working well, Clark, in Northeast Ohio. We're going to have to do electric marks. Maybe that guy in Detroit who's doing the electric marks, Mark Setbot. We'll maybe get that on, get Clark to maybe have Clark go interview the guy at some point. That might be a good thing to do. I have a final question for you.
Yep.
Name of your company is? Your real estate company.
Oh, Golden Drake Realty.
And what's that on your shirt right
Yeah, that's an insignia of my late Golden, whose name was Drake. And that dog, I wrote a book about him. He taught me how to live. I couldn't figure out why everybody liked my dog more than me. And then I had to watch and learn and listen. And I thought, that dog has all the characteristics that you would want in a wonderful human being. And he has them better than anyone else. The loyalty, the hard work, the intelligence, the honesty. And I thought, wow, what a way to run a business.
Golden Drake.
Maybe that should be a business.
Do you have another dog now?
I do. I wasn't going to get another one because when I lost Drake, it really hurt. But I got another one. I went to an appointment one time, and there he was in a cage in a laundry room, a Golden. And I just said, boy, he's really an intelligent dog. And they said, no, he's pretty dumb. I said, well, do you train him? No, we don't train him. And I went on and talked about why you should. Well, they called me 2 days later, and they said, we want you to take him because we can't raise him as well as you can. And so I got another dog, and his name's Broker.
Broker. Greg, thank you very much. Congratulations.
My pleasure. My honor, Tom.
For those who've just joined us, I'm going to swing camera one around here and get a shot of your grandkids who joined us as part of our live studio audience here and reintroduce them thank you, kids, for joining us. Was that interesting, or was it? He's pretty articulate, isn't he? Your grandfather is. Reintroduce him for us, Craig.
Thank you. So on the left is Christian, 13 years old, and on the right is Coral, and she's 9 years old.
Are you both boaters and swimmers? And how about sailors? Have we got you sailing yet? A little bit? We got to get you out in that interlake and get you sailing on Thursday nights with your grandpa. That would be good. Commodore, thank you very much indeed. Much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And I will move on. If you're just joining us, we're about an hour and a half into the show, and we've had Commodore Craig Kivi. He was Commodore here in the 90s at our Portage Yacht Club. We're sitting in the modern day. This clubhouse has been here since the early 90s. The original clubhouse that was here was built as a wooden beach club building where people came out and used the bathing beach. There's a huge sandy beach here, and there's a 200-boat marina out front, which used to be virtually all sailboats. There were 2 power boats here to run the races and 1 or 2 others. And now a sign of the time, sadly, is it's a lot of power boats and not too many sailboats, although Clark Chapin, who's joining you want to come up and join us live, Clark, for the rest of the show? Thanks, Craig. Thank you very much. We'll let Craig get off the hot seat and bring Clark in because he doesn't know what we're going to talk about, but we might keep going with Clark since he's so popular. And I didn't know he'd come out to the lake today. He lives in a western suburb of Detroit. So, Craig, thanks again. Much appreciated. Terrific. Thank you for letting us have your grandfather to the kids. This day in history, while Clark's getting settled in, Clark's your headset and mic okay? Volume okay on your headset? Yep. Come on in a little closer, and we'll get your camera adjusted during this next segment. This day in history, And Clark, thanks, guys. Ciao. This day in history, Clark, the 7th of July, 1985. And this for our German friends and for some, we have a lot of tennis buffs on here. Of course, Wimbledon's going on right now, so I thought, Clark, it might be appropriate to do something tennis-esque, if that's the word. Here's your first clue. Any idea who that is? You remember him? Boomer. Speaking of, we know with James Frederick Bland, we got another boomer here. That is Boris Becker, the German tennis star, who at age 17, on this day in history, 1985, Boris beat South African Kevin Curran 6-3, 6-7, 7-6, 6-4 to become the youngest man at age only 17 to win a Wimbledon singles title. Golden days. On this day in history, 1985. And do you know what he looks like, Clark, today? Would you recognize him in this shot?
No.
Now, he's had, that previous slide said the rise and fall of Boris Becker. Well, he has fallen from his perch when he was one of, if not the most promising young. And he won, I think he won 3 or 4 more Wimbledon titles after that. But this is from last year. Former world #1 men's tennis player Boris Becker has left for Germany after serving 8 months of his sentence in the UK. He was sentenced to prison for tax dodging, basically, and not reporting assets and taxes. After UK media reported he had been released from custody and he got an early release. Becker, quote, has served his sentence and is not subject to any penal restrictions in Germany, his lawyer said. In a statement, Moser did not provide any further details but Becker's location in Germany. But you talk about a fall from grace. This is a New York Post story from this morning about Mr. Becker, Herr Becker, how Boris Becker went from tennis playboy millionaire to bankruptcy prison hell. And Clark, I read the article, and he says that prison ain't what it is cracked up to be. It's even worse.
Well, I thought you were going to say he went to prison for hosting a party during a COVID lockdown.
Well, that was in England. That's Boris. That's the other.
That's another Boris.
That's Bojo. That's Boris Johnson, who, by the way, also on this day, I didn't use it, but on this day, he stepped down or was booted a couple of years ago from being PM.
I thought you were going to use the fact that on this day in 1928, sliced bread was first offered for sale.
I saw that.
It is the best thing ever.
It's the best thing since sliced bread. I saw that, but I think we've used that before. Maybe the guy getting the patent for it or something, so I thought Boris Becker was more interesting. Clark, that was a terrific job that Craig did. Now, I'm not surprised. Don't you think?
No, I've been watching this project the last couple of years and always been impressed by it. So.
No, I'm so impressed by his enthusiasm but we know that we've known him on and off. I've been away from this lake for a long, long time. We have a quadruple A. As I look up at the big monitor here, we have Alistair checking in. Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote, and we're delighted that he sent this in. It's very brief. We didn't want to do a long show today. We're closing in on 2 hours nonetheless. But Alistair sent this in, and I just thought we should do it because apropos what we've discussed, him wrapping up his tour of all the states in Australia, I think this is exactly what a president of a sailing federation in any country should be doing. Bravo Zulu to him. And here's Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote for today.
G'day, this is Alistair Murray, President of Australian Sailing. We've just concluded our Sailing Summit program across Australia. We've had 8 conferences across 8 states and territories. Attendance was particularly good. We were up about 10% on previous years, which was positive. We had 440 people take part in total. 175 clubs were represented, which is about half of our total membership. 54 class associations, up from 13, which was a big goal of ours to include the class associations more. I'd like to thank the clubs that hosted us. We had some wonderful venues. I'd like to thank the speakers and sponsors that took part. The general managers in each state that were the backbones of these conferences and did a great job organising them. And to all their staff, thank you. It's been a wonderful program, and I'm already looking forward to next year. See you later.
Thanks, Alistair. Just fabulous stuff. And, you know, there's not a lot of news or information in his report, but the fact that he did it is so smart because he's a smart guy, and it's so good for our sport. I hope more federations, Clark, will do just that.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yes, great idea. You know,
Okay. Okay. And we carry on here with some America's Cup news. Actually, quite a bit of AC37 news. You maybe saw on my Facebook page earlier this week. The Luna Rosa Pradaprelli finally got their boat from Sardinia, down there in Cagliari, up to Barcelona. And the summer conditions on their first day out, according to America's Cup, AC37 itself, it was a flat out on day one. Well, you can read all this stuff. It's a little bit like our Vice President Kamala Harris's word salads that she gets it. But bottom line, they flipped. And they gave some interviews saying, you know, there's a lot more bump for the amount of breeze. And we've all been saying it. It's going to be a problem in Barcelona on the western end of the Med, and a southeasterly kind of a sea breeze hitting up against the breakwater, where I did the Olympics as a judge in 1992. And I can guarantee you that for the amount of wind, it is also very bumpy, as Luna Rosa Pradaprelli found out on the 4th of July, last Tuesday. This is the arrival yesterday, yesterday, of Emirates Team New Zealand's boat to Barcelona. Have a look.
This morning we're in the port of Tarragona, Spain, to greet the ship that has brought our AC-75 from New Zealand. We have just offloaded her onto the quay. We will put the hull and rig on separate trucks, and they will be trucked up to Barcelona, about 90 kilometres away, where we have some shore crew waiting to assemble her and get her ready for our first sail to Barcelona. Well, after 30 days at sea and after a little trucking up the coast, our AC-75 has arrived in Barcelona at the base.
Push and delivery of the boat here, hour and a half, in and out, drop off. No problems, no issues, ready to go, sorting for a couple weeks sailing.
Okay, so much for that video. Short and sweet, but they are there as all the teams are gradually making their way to Barcelona for some action, which starts in Villanova. It's just a town down the coast toward Valencia in a couple months' time, in September. We'll tell you about that in a moment. In the meantime, this team, I'm telling you, they're good, and that is Alinghi. They're going to be
We're
good.
here with Nico Rolla, trimmer on board Alinghi Red Bull Racing. So you had an early start today, grey skies, and you started with about 14 knots of wind and some patches of quite heavy rain. Then slowly it all started to clear up and the wind decreased. What was the plan for today? Did you stick to that plan?
Yeah, team decided to go quite early as the window was short. We started with a nice breeze, with a nice sea state, and slowly the sea state increased, the wind dropped, so it got a bit harder. And the plan was to try some sails, and we did it, so good.
You had a few squalls coming through. How did you handle those?
Yes, we went through squalls, but it was all right. We could see them well. Of course, the rain felt a bit hard on the face when you're traveling at that speed, but it's all right.
So you started with two different jibs, the J2 and the J3. You were on the boat with the J2. From your perspective, which worked better for the conditions of the morning? The yellow boat for us looked faster overall until the wind started to die down.
Yeah, as you could see, there also was a different mainsail on, so we're trying different settings. It depends the wind, depends the waves, but overall both boats had positive things and negative things.
Yeah, then both boats were on the J2 jibs, so the only difference was the mainsail, the LE mainsail on the yellow boat. What do you think were the differences in performance between the two boats?
We hadn't much time with both J2 up because the waves were big, the wind went down, so we struggled with takeoffs. It was a good to try the J2 in this low end breeze. And yeah, the difference in the main it's hard to tell with these estates. It's a lot of boat handling more than sails.
So in the flatter seas, you've sailed both main sails, the LE and the One Design. Which one do you prefer and why?
I think the One Design is a good sail. For sure, our Lake Q has some detail to it, and still early on, especially me, I haven't sailed much with the LAQ. So overall, we're happy with the design. We'll keep improving it.
Have you sailed with the LE mainsail on the simulator? Is it accurate?
Yes, we do.
And so now you've switched out the Delta foil and put back the One Design foil. Will we see the Delta foil again?
Yes, I think we're gonna see some more foils coming, and we just put the One Design back because it was about sail testing. So,
Nico, thank you for your time.
thank you.
Clark, they're going to be good.
Yep, I say they're. I'm not an America's Cup sailor. I don't even play one on TV, but they're smooth. They're not doing a lot of up and down. They look fast.
I think a lot of other people are starting to come to the same conclusion that maybe they're going to be really a tough team to beat in the Challenger Selection Series. What are the comments? Stingray, 50 knots with rain in your face. Wow. Two-boat testing or just illegal in the it's just illegal in the 75s, Baton Rouge. Everybody can use their LEQ 12 and their AC 40. Like me on a motorbike, Ryan, we got to get I don't want a pickle, just want to ride my motorcycle. Yeah, it's okay, as Steve Gruber is saying. I think it is, that's a nice, another, that's, I watch those spy videos, and once in a blue moon you get a good one like that is really, I think, a good one, thanks to America's Cup, the 37th America's Cup in Barcelona. But the preliminary regatta is going to take place the 14th through the September, first AC 37 preliminary regatta in this town called Villanova. I won't go through the rest of the Catalan there, but it is in Catalonia. It's in that state, south and west of Barcelona, down toward Valencia a little bit, not far. And that first AC 37 regatta is taking place. There's a press release out. I won't bore you with the whole thing here, but racing, as we've told you, will be conducted in the world's newest foiling class, the AC40, and all boats will be sailed in One Design mode and equally matched. So they won't be testing and trying different wings, for example. They all have the same kit, as the Brits would say, you Commonwealthers would say. Racing starts with 2 days of fleet racing where all the 6 teams will line up. Clark, 6 boats lined up on the starting line together, foilers going, 40 knots. Which promises to be a fantastic spectacle, fast, furious, and desperately close. I hope not too close. After the fleet races, those eight fleet after up to 8, they won't get that many races in. The top 4 teams will progress to the one-on-one match racing semifinal and final to decide the ultimate winner of the event. And of course, the event doesn't count really for anything other than tie-breaking if they get into that, sort of like the import races were in the ocean race. Another slide here for you. So just the format. Day 1 is fleet racing among the 6 teams. Day 2 is fleet racing among the 6 teams. And if they get 8 between those 2 days off, fleet races completed in those 2 days, I will be amazed. But let's see. Then they're going to do some more on day 3, followed by the top 4 boats matriculating, advancing to a semifinals, and then the winners of the semis going into a final. And that, of course, is match racing. That is the 14th through the 17th of September. The first AC 37 preliminary regatta in Villanova in España. Of course, the next one they're still fighting about, whether the Jeddah event in, late November, early December, who's going, whether they have to go, whether New York Yacht Club's team is going. I hear they're not. And we shall see how that all pans out. I wonder what happened to the AC40s if they did not have computers flying them, Ed Worley is asking. The Ineos Recon vlogs have been consistently excellent. Yes, I agree, Gordon Smith. Those have been good as well. Remind me who's doing those, because whoever is the reporter is particularly good. Gruber's saying, replying to Ed Worley, just look at all the capsizes. I'm pretty sure the teams don't sail them with the autos. Well, we'll see. One here is Villanova is predominantly Saudi-owned. I don't know about that, Stinger. You've read some stuff. You and I have talked about that offline, but I'm not sure. Little Jetta is what Ted Ryman is saying. Is that really true? Is that really true? How many hydrogen chase boats will be at these regattas? Clark Jody is asking.
Well, the number will be an integer. Whether or not it's a positive integer is another thing.
Which gets us to the last leg, and I appreciate Clark coming in and joining us for those segments. And we have a nice little tribute here to my longtime friend, dear friend, who's passed away a couple weeks ago in Athens, in Greece, and that, of course, is George Andriadis, who is a sailor and a leader in our sport and a gentle giant, just a nice guy, a banker. He from a family with some money, and he made even some more money and was just a tower of power. And we are going to miss him dearly. A sailor from young age, George's career took him to 2 Olympic Games, first in the FD at Mexico, 1968. The games were in Acapulco. And later in the Soling at Montreal, 1976. He was also team leader of the Greek sailing team at Moscow, 1980. And then, which is when I remember him, he was chairman of the measurement committee, plus the IYRU committee stuff. But he was chairman of the Olympic measurement committee for the 3 following Olympics and chairman of the sailing committee, which is to make kind of major format issue decisions at the Atlanta Games themselves, 96. 2010, he was awarded the Silver Olympic Order, which is a big deal when the IOC awards anybody from our sport, either the silver or the gold, sometimes the bronze, and as they did in 2010 to George, Mr. Andriadis. He was a vice president of world sailing from 86 to 94, 98 to 2009, and 2012, 2016. He was a member of council from 94 to 98, and again 2008, 2012. He kept getting elected. He'd retire. They arm twist him to come back and do some more because he was just such a cool and gentle. I mean, the guy was completely the opposite of me. Just always quiet, always behind the scenes, working behind the scenes to convince you that maybe you should do this or not do that, or what's your idea. And he, along the same lines, was an honorary president of the Cyprus Yachting Association, and he was since the 90s, since 1995. And even with all that service, Andriadis remained successful and active in big boat racing on his various 16 boats named Atalanti and 4 boats named Melity, the last of which won the ORC World Championship in 2009 in Brindisi in Italy, and a silver medal at the 2016 ORC European Championship close to home in Thessaloniki, thank you. I practiced that this morning. All his racing crews were treated as family members, and he did. I sailed him once or twice, and 3 times maybe, and his gentle attitude he made many friends around the world. Finally, for his tireless long-term dedication over decades of service, in 2016, World Sailing honored him with its highest award, the highest honor, the Beppe Croce Award for an outstanding voluntary contribution to the sport. That's Beppe's son, Carlo Croce, made the presentation after his late great father had long since passed away. George Andriadis from Greece, 1941 to 2023. May he rest in peace. Okay, that gets us to the finish line here, and our famously good J24 photo from down there in Tampa, J24 Midwinters. And we'll do winners of the day, Clark. And this was one of Craig's photos about the logs and the habitats he's creating, especially up there on the northwest side of the lake. And I think you would agree with me that the winners of the day are all of us. I said at the top of the show, in fact, gave this one away. Everyone living on Portage Lake and lakes like it where there is a spark plug like Craig Kivi.
Yes, as our friend Brooke Smith said, it's like Portage Lake got a new kidney.
With Craig Kivi's effort.
With Craig Kivi's effort, due to Craig's efforts.
And congratulations to you on winning the night again last night.
I had a crew that hadn't sailed for a year with me and had only briefly experienced a spinnaker before, so he was at the steep end of the learning curve, but was a lot better. Actually got to jibe the spinnaker in the third race. So
well, you must be a good teacher, a good instructor.
I enjoy taking people and bringing them along.
Into our beloved sport.
Into our beloved sport.
Clark, here's for our Aussie friends. Several of you sent this to me. I couldn't resist to have we have some funnies at the end of this show. It's a pretty heavy show talking about this stuff with Craig. Do you see this lady on the Nine Network down in Australia? You see, this is a wardrobe fail if I ever saw one. Several of you sent this to me. I think Jody sent it to me and others. But the croutons du jour, I mean, this lady, but everybody at 9 News at
the costume department at 9 News.
Well, it's the producers for not recognizing what she is rocking. The 9 Network has a wardrobe fail. Clearly, the croutons du jour in this show, which gets us, thankfully, to Whiskey Tango Foxtrot and the wrap up. Clark, you sent me a couple of these. There's the first one. Let's wait for the iPad. This is how I felt after racing last night. I needed, before I could do anything, I had to come in and get, I took a couple aspirin prophylactically before the race, and then 2 more after the race with a glass of tequila soda. And I'll tell you, it went down very well. I felt much better almost immediately. Gardening is my life, but let's wait for the ibuprofen to kick in. Together. Clark sent that one to us. Thank you, sir. Mm-hmm. You also sent this one. Me standing outside the yacht club playing orca sounds. Where'd you find that?
Popped up on Facebook. What can I say?
Oh, goodness me. Now this one's clever. Play that funky music.
White Boy.
White Boy.
That was for my brother-in-law.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, you must all be subscribing to the same page, because I got this from, it must have come from, I don't know, 5, 6 of the Fozy, and Ed Worley said it first, actually. So thank you for that, Ed. And since this is the sailing show, the drinking show of the sailing habit, I had to end. And because Clark's an engineer, it's a caption contest, Clark. One of them submitted was how engineers drink. What?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you make a...
Or plumbers.
Maybe plumbers. A Jack Daniels and Coke. Okay, Ted Ryman sent that. Who else but Ted would send that in? Clark, you can do the honors again.
Yep. Everybody like, follow, and share to your own page and pages you're responsible for, and help spread the word.
And we'd also say,
and comments welcome, even in replay. And if you're croutonic in your comments,
Julia will flick you.
Yeah,
she'll flick you straight away. Thanks, everybody. We've gone almost 2 hours. We thought it'd be a nice. It's a relaxed show since I am on holiday. I did manage to wear a different shirt today, I think, than I did on the show last Friday. But if you are so inclined, we would appreciate you very much becoming a patron. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated, with thanks to all those who gave us media for today's show. And we will see you not Tuesday. I'm not going to do a show Tuesday. We're going to do a show a week from today on Friday will be our next show, and it'll be a Governor's Cup show. We are going to get back onto the road to the Governor's Cup, and Alistair Murray and all the rest of you down in Oz will be pleased to know that we are going to feature, on next Wednesday, I'm going to record all 3 Aussies together with Andy Rose. We're going to do Max, Cole, and Marcello. Max Paul, Cole Tapper, Marcello Torre. And we will do Cole Tapper, by the way. Congratulations to him. He just won the Australian Youth Match Racing Championship, which ended a couple days ago at the Royal Perth Yacht Club out in WA. So we'll have him along with the other two, and then that will air on our show next Friday when Road to the Governor's Cup will resume with the 3 Aussie skippers. Clark, final word?
Don't have a final word except thanks again to Craig for everything he did, and how and his enthusiasm on the subject is absolutely contagious.
Well, let's talk to the FOSI and let's think about it ourselves, but let's talk to the FOSI about how we might take his enthusiasm, his local effort. I'm sure these things are going on in lots of other places around this country and around the world, and how we can share some best practices and share some information between the Craig Kivis of this sailing world, right? Mm-hmm. Clark, thank you again. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks to all of you. We hope to see you not next Tuesday, but next Friday. In the meantime, have a great weekend wherever in the world you are, and a great week next week. See you next Friday. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.